nature of the footprints, namely their remarkable consistency, their biomechanical appropriateness.
Spanning the entire globe, involving hundreds of different cultures, explaining the same phenomenon by different names. At some point, you have to go, even as a scientist, you have to say, well, there's got to be something. It can't all be mass illusion.
In regards to the North American Sasquatch, if it does exist, what do you feel the environmental conditions it needs to exist?
If it exists, and I think there are a few left, which is space, cover, food, and water.
How would you explain their potential elusiveness?
Again, the size of the area.
Okay.
And I think I said food, water, time, and space. I mean food, water, cover, and space. Enormous cover.
Okay.
You talk to the average small plane pilot flying here, and how about looking down? Do you think you might see a Bigfoot? The forest is dense, they can't see into it. And then again, enormous, Northern California to the Alaskan border, huge area. I've been in and out of a lot of it, and I'm quite certain that there's enough space for a small group of these things to survive, to hide.
So over the years, Peter, what kept you going?
All the fascination of a find. First of all, with the Yeti, we thought there might be a few left at that time. Thought of finding one. So we hiked great distances. Nepal at that time had no roads, no air service, no helicopters, just trails, nothing else. So 20 miles a day. So you hear of something that happened at 100 miles away. It was 5 days to get there to investigate what might be a sighting. So the fascination of a find. The same thing with Bigfoot. When we worked on the finds, on reports, spending days, and originally spending nights watching areas at night. The hope of seeing one. We carried rifles with us when we first started, in the very first year, because we didn't know what we were up to. And after that, we carried cameras always with us, in the hope of seeing one. And then, for the research on my book, I interviewed a large number of people who came across with credible sightings. I carried a questionnaire, I would ask them the questions, and then I would assess the credibility of their sighting. And there were quite a few. They were like state policemen, U.S. foresters, researchers who definitely saw something and were able to describe it. And these are people who live thousands of miles apart, never met each other, because they came across with the same description, a very short neck, things like that.
Is there anything that you changed with your research techniques from when you were younger until later on in your career?
Yes, we spent less time in the forest. We relied on technology.
Okay.
We relied on people to report their sightings. We originally went in there. We camped for weeks and weeks. We camped for months. It depended on people giving us a call about a sighting. And then if it was in Oregon or Washington, or even further than that, like BC, British Columbia.
What's the most compelling evidence that you came across yourself?
Well, first of all, the history, which I was able to trace back to about 1785, and Native North Americans talking about the thing. And then across the years, a history that continued And then the sightings, and then the footprint finds in which I was involved. 5 sets of footprints across the last 50, 60 years I've seen in remote areas, large footprints that were made by a large bipedal creature. And then again, the what we call the 1967 footage, that single piece of footage that was made by 2 men, on which tremendous amount of research has been done. In one of my projects, we paid a company in Peoria $85,000 to spend 6 months looking at it, examining it. And they did. And what they came up with, in summary, was we don't know what it is, but it's a real living creature. So this behind the tractor always. So he looks up and he sees what he thinks it's a man standing on the edge of the forest with its arm against a tree, watching him. He stops his engine to look. The thing walks away. Next day, 2 men working in the same area, and they take a break. At 11 o'clock, they want to walk into the shade and have the smoke. They're walking into the shade. One of these creatures stands up right in front of them. He runs after it, throws a rock at it, but it doesn't stop. It keeps going. Sightings over those 2 days, and the men were all outdoors men, a lot of time spent in the forest. Then there's that, and then what we call the 7-man sighting. And in June 2019, there were 7 loggers working with heavy machinery. And they were not hippies, they were not tourists riding bicycles, they were loggers with 20 to 25 years experience. And they were in a closed and gated area. A lot of these areas are all gated. And one of them says, "Who's that walking down the road?" And here was what they all said was a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot walking down the road about 300 yards away towards them. He walked right up to 100 yards, stopped and looked at them. They all stood there with their mouths open, no cameras, no phones. It turned and walked away. One of the men was a personal friend of mine. I interviewed him, and I interviewed 2 of the others. So an extraordinary sighting. 7 men, we call it 7-man sighting, in June 2019.
No cameras. Do you think people just freeze? But when in the moment, you only have a few seconds to see this creature. And do you think people just are so shocked that they can't pull a camera out?
Yes, I agree with you. I found that with several people. They were in shock. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Pulled the camera out and it was gone. You would be in shock. I talked with a state policeman, 20 years of service patrolling, and he was working mainly in forestry and concerned with timber theft. And he's driving at night, and his headlights swing across the road, and there's one standing beside the road. So he hits the brakes, because at night, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, somebody standing on the road is somebody who needs help. Slowed down, he walked across the road right in front of him. And it gave him a sense of shock. He said it was like a creature from another world, and he should have stopped. He didn't. He put his foot on the throttle, accelerated, and took off, which he regretted later. He went back in the morning with another state policeman. They got out and searched. There were footprints in the bank there. So seeing one of these things, especially close up, could be shocking. If it's a mature creature, you're looking at something that's 7 feet tall, weighing 400 pounds or more, covered with hair. It's probably like seeing a gorilla close up for the first time when you're not expecting one.
What do you feel, Peter, is your biggest accomplishment?
Having the time, and in some cases the money with 2 big projects, having the time to do the research that I did and make a recording in my books, The Hunt for Bigfoot, The Hunt for the Yeti, make an accurate recording of everything that I found. That's what's satisfactory to me. I was financed in two projects, one by Tom Slick, 1.75 years, in which we spent about close to $1 million. And then another one in the 90s, I was able to make an accurate recording of everything that we found.
Well, Peter, that's all the questions I had for you. You have been such a gracious participant in this, and I thank you so much. It's so kind of you and very gracious. I'm humbled by this, and it couldn't be a book without you in it.
Call back if you think of any other questions. Call me back. That'll be fine.
I will. Well, thank you so much for that too. I may have some more photos that I may need and some other questions. Peter, thank you. This has been great. This has been excellent. Thank you so much. Okay. Take care.